We got a question from RazorClaw999 who said, do you think the Shards of Domination is a Bobby attempt at monetizing PvE gameplay in WoW like Destiny has for transmogging? So there's zero monetization in Shards of Domination, so no. I think at most you could say that, they're cynically trying to extend the game time, but I don't think it's that. I think they are genuinely trying to make killing a raid boss a more exciting and rewarding experience. Shards of Domination, we'll get into that in the news segment. It has its pros, it has its cons.
Definitely.
We'll get into it very soon. We have a question from Dastil, which is very similar to another one. He said, as a lore guy, do you have the feeling the lore in WoW has gotten better or worse over time? Looking forward to every stream. Much love. Much love back. It's got worse and more interesting.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because it means that I enjoy it more, even though I think it's not as good. But it's more interesting. And that's the whole thing of world building, storytelling. They are separate things.
Yeah.
It's like why so many people love Lord of the Rings. They don't like the Silmarillion. They are there for, with Lord of the Rings, it's like because Lord of the Rings isn't that important to the Tolkien mythos. Yeah. Like it is to the Tolkien estate. Or not the estate, but, I wouldn't say the estate, because the estate is actually pretty pissed at the Lord of the Rings movies, from what I understand. It's because Tolkien he never really had a big emphasis on battles, but of course you're doing a movie, so you have to do the battle. But it's that thing, right? Tolkien, if you were to do a critique of his writing, you could maybe say that it could feel like a historian wrote it, or something like that. There's a lot of his real passions were linguistics and stuff with the language creation, but it's that thing. Lord of the Rings, is it always I love it. Love it.
Really?
But, it's that thing of world building versus storytelling. I think that can come out in the Lord of the Rings fandom versus the Silmarillion fandom versus the Tolkien fandom. It's very different. So it's that thing for me. I enjoy it more, but I think their actual storytelling in game has gotten worse because they do not. Basically, they're more ambitious, and they definitely have more ambitious, big hype points, but they haven't been able to find enough resources to tell the story over a long enough period of time, which means that it feels like there's very, very quick beats. And then also from a point of how they structure their scripts and stuff like that. It's like our game script right now is 150,000 words. So a lot of that, how do you frame dialogue to a player, et cetera, is going through our heads a lot these days. That's the current length of the script. Who knows? I imagine it'll be longer than that eventually, but anyway, it doesn't matter too much for now.
No, I think.
But the point there is where FF frames it as dialogue between your character and the people around you, so you're all one big happy family. It's more in WoW. It's like Jaina proclaiming something, and it's like they don't have the time to actually have it so that in my head canon, it's not that Jaina is a character in a fictional IP that I care about. It's like, Jaina, we've really been through it together. Yeah. She's like this. She thinks this about me. I made this choice and she thought this about it. Yeah. That's basically my point.
Yeah, you're the mute bodyguard with an ego problem that some people always forget. That's what it is. Because, they always champion, hero, you're the greatest. But then you never really speak. And also they just go point and kill. You kill, shoot that, kill that, shoot that. Okay, sure, whatever. But I feel like the lore's gotten better because they've got so many more resources that care about a coherent lore. They've written Chronicle, they've written Chronicle and sometimes kept to it. They've written the Grimoire of the Shadowlands and beyond. They've written Folk and Fairy Tales. The lore is expanding massively, and it's really, 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 it's really well put together most of the time. Sometimes they have to make old Blizzard decisions and make them work in their new world, which is kind of sucks, but they aren't very good at actually telling the stories that people care about. It's like you say, they're doing a terrible job at making Lord of the Rings, but they're doing a pretty damn good job with the Silmarillion.
That's a comparison that I totally get what you're going for, and I agree. There's going to be some people you just compare the Silmarillion to WoW Chronicle, really? But I actually do entirely agree with your point. Yeah. It's that thing. My lore enjoyment experience has gotten better and better over time. Yeah. But my in-game storytelling experience has fallen by the wayside because it fundamentally changed from I'm an adventurer learning about a world to I am the mute bodyguard with an ego problem to, Jaina and a Thrall and a few characters. Yeah. So I guess that's maybe the difference. I think the solution to this is actually to have an expansion where we basically revisit Azeroth in some way, and we can rediscover how Azeroth has changed after, the Cataclysm. That's what my personal wish would be.
I think the solution to actually that, getting the more storytelling, as far as I'm concerned, is go speak to the person who made Immersion, put that in the game.
Monk's great.
And
We've worked with him. Paid as well. I should say that as well.
Yeah,
Like we did pay him to work, and he was a great guy, great to work with.
That, and then cut the scope of quests to about 30%, 40% of what you're planning, and then put all of the effort into making them actually work like dialogue. And then, that's not going to be easy. I go, that's a solution, just easy, just implement that. It's not easy in any capacity, but it is, I feel like that's a solution to that, because their tools limit them more than anything else, because they can't tell these stories without having those things actually there.
Yeah.
Which is the difficult part, I think.
We got one from Black Cat, who said, the Shadowlands experience has taught me not to buy the next WoW expansion till it's 100% done, no matter how good it looks. It's paid beta till final patch. Only then is it playable. Playable, I would disagree with. It is playable, but it certainly has issues. And that you can super chat that is basically just a mark of Blizzard messing up. Now, obviously, something will be done, and it'll need to be dialed in a little bit after launch. Sure. Yeah. But if it's at the sort of case where, if you got excited by Torghast when that was unveiled as a big feature, you're fucked, aren't you? Because it's not good. And it's not going to be good in patch 9.1. It doesn't. 9.1 moves it in the right direction, but not enough. And it very much, 9.1 doubles down on the whole thing of Blizzard bribing you to do content because they don't have enough confidence in the actual content itself that people would, it's that thing. Why would you bother making a fun progression system for Torghast with lots of unique, varied rewards when you can just put Soul Cinders on it, and then people are going to have to do it for player power?
Yeah.
I agree, Black Cat. So I get what you're saying, where you're coming from. For me, it's as long as there's a raid in the patch or expansion launch, there will be the WoW that I want.
Yeah.
That's my minimum viable playable WoW, is just there is a good raid. But for a lot of people, I think a lot of the fantasy-driven people who, they saw the Covenants didn't have the most content ever. They saw that, the variability in gameplay of getting Covenant rewards was really very bad. It's very much just get anima, that's it. For those people, there just wasn't enough, and the paid beta thing's just not on. So yeah, they're training people not to trust them consistently. They train people not to grind in one patch because the next patch will completely nerf their efforts. They're training people not to trust that they release quality products. Shadowlands should have been delayed. Maybe it needed 6 months. I don't know what it needed versus what they actually initially had planned. I'd love to see the pitch deck for Shadowlands. I know that much.
I think 9.1 being 9.0 would have been ideal essentially, but it's weird because they can't just the rate of development would have been massively different if they hadn't launched Shadowlands, because there's obviously they could have over polished some stuff in 9.0 that didn't need touched up. And obviously, once 9.0 is out, they have to rush to get the next raid in. Yeah. So it's not like they would be launching 9.0 next month with 2 raids or anything stupid like that. The actual development path would be significantly different. But it's weird. All this conversation makes me think of what I think is a real problem that games in general need to sit down and address, especially MMOs and service games. If there's this trend line of continually improving, what do you do to get people in before it's done? And obviously early access games offer 2 things, which is usually a reduced price and the ability to be part of the journey. So you actually, you get a small enough early access game, you go into the Steam community and you literally say, hey devs, I play a lot of these games, you should try thinking about this. Or, this class doesn't feel so good. Could you change this up a little bit in this direction? And the chances are your voice will be heard as opposed to a finished game. So it's that case where that's a problem that early access games face. It's a problem that live service games face. And it's also a problem that MMOs, that especially now, seem to face a lot more. Because again, it's kind of tied to the attention stuff where people have better things to do. Yeah. So how do we sit down and engage with that problem of people want finished games?
I think it is just the thing you launch has got to be good. It's got to get better over time. And that initial bar of good has to be good enough.
Yeah.
for an MMO. I think that's basically it, and that's just going to mean it's an arms race of who can do the biggest thing whenever their game comes out, which is actually an arms race that Blizzard should win because they should have the resources.
You would hope so.
You hear was it Yoshi kind of say, "Oh wow, I'd wish to have the budget WoW does,"
Oh yeah,
and stuff like that. So it's
Yep.
interesting.